mean, I'm pretty fucking sure that the big part for getting IUI, especially for me, and probably for anybody who's not like especially good looking, is to have that kind of like open, happy dog face. There was, you know, like you see fucking dogs with their owners, right? And especially if like the owner's just about to take them out for a walk or just about to throw the tennis ball for them or something, right? Dogs have this like really open, excitable, happy face, right? Without any guile on it at all. They're like, oh, fucking hell, life's so awesome, right? Life's great, right? They have this look to them. And it's very striking, and I think it's one of the reasons why men like dogs so much, is dogs have no guile. Right, like cats look at you in a kind of fuck you kind of way, right? Cats are like way too cool for school the way their faces look, and but dogs are like totally open, right? Like tongues hanging out, the eyes are wide, fucking tails are wagging. Like you always know, looking at a dog, what it's thinking, always.
So how do you translate that into your?
Well, that's the tough thing, right? Is like
it's not smiling. I mean, walking around.
No, it's not smiling because that's being a fucking bell end, right? Yeah. Like no, you can't be weak, but. You know, people have masks, right? Everyone's wearing masks because everyone's got an ego and everyone's trying to present a certain way, right? They're all, you know, there's a whole subgenre of psychology called impression management, right?
The Goffman thing and everything.
Yeah, the what? Goffman?
Irvin Goffman, you know.
Yeah, he's that.
On stage.
Yeah, it's Goffman. God, this is going back to my A-level psychology, yeah. God, I haven't heard that name in years. But yeah, it's that stuff, right? No, it was a chapter in my psychology textbook. It was the right of the textbook was called Gross, something like that. Yeah. But it was like the key A-level textbook back when I done it. And there was a whole chapter called impression management, right? And I think Goffman was in that. So yeah, it's a good little chapter. I should probably reread it because it was a good little book. So anyway, everyone's engaged in impression management, right? Wearing masks, bit of fakery. And when they're really obvious about it, it's really incongruent and weird and turns people off. But you know, like, I don't know, a lot of people seem to think that you can get one over on other people, like you can make them believe in that the face you're putting on is your real face, right? And I don't think anyone's truly hoodwinked. Right, so, a big part of game, there's something like I remember Colin explained to me, is game is not about constructing something outside yourself, like a better mask. You know, game is not about creating this higher level, more attractive fake avatar. I mean, that's like old school game and a lot of the American game, you know, that like pocket square dress like a faggot game that you get in the West Coast of America. Like that sort of game, you know, like stack the paper, get the VIP table, wear your pocket square, you know, dress like those masculine fashion blogs tell you, right? It's basically like be a faggot game, right? But it's like be a faggot that is, you know, supposedly an attractive avatar to women. Right, well, the very first problem with that, apart from that you look like a faggot, is that it's completely fake, right? It's like build the avatar. Now, I suppose you can have a fake until you make it, you eventually become that guy, but it's fronting, right? It's either fronting in the old con man sense of like you're putting out a completely fake front that isn't you to sucker girls, or it's fronting in a more mild sense of fake it till you make it. You know, you really are trying to become that guy, but for the minute it's not really putting on this in, right? But what it definitely is impression management. Right, now I think everyone has a bullshit detector. Girls particularly are good at spotting when guys are fronting and not. Now I think the way you're still going to get laid if you're front, because ultimately women can only choose from their options and everybody's fronting in one way or another. And you know, girls want to get laid, they might like you, they think, oh right, he's fronting, but I still like the guy, right? Yeah. But I think the way Colin was describing it is, which I think is true, is really what game is it's about polishing the lens. So what happens is this, like your life, like you're in a game, your mindset, who you are, how you've lived, like the real you, is like a movie being projected onto the screen. And the problem is, obviously the movie might be shit, right? So you know you got to go and like make your life good, make yourself good, sort out your inner game, all that sort of stuff, right? Make it a good movie. But the other thing you got to do is that the actual projector, the lens on it can be fucked, scratched, bent, warped, dirty, whatever, right? So the way he was describing it, and this is what I was going to have in the book I'd done with him that I never finished, was he talked about how a lot of the inner game work you do, and a lot of the technical game work you do, is really about cleaning the lens, removing the scratches and making the lens perfectly clear. So the lens actually presents the movie crystal clear, undistorted. And that, if you can do that, then, you know, the woman's perception of you, she's essentially the screen, right? It's projected onto her, so it'll be in perfect focus. It's a good movie in perfect focus without artifacts.
So what is the lens exactly?
Well, that's the thing. This is all symbolism. This is all symbolism, right? Now, if, say, your game is like clunky, right? Like you fuck up your street stop, you get the geometry wrong, or your body language is wrong, that's kind of like the lens being a bit fucked, right? You're trying to get your real personality out, but like you're technically limited by shitty game. Okay. Even if you're a really fucking cool guy, you know, and once you, let's say you're too nervous, for example, right? Yeah. So you fucking stammer and you can't find your flow. That's not really you. The you is when you're sitting with your mates talking, right? There's a whole version of you, but that's why I talk about like the value delivery mechanism, right? You can have the value, you can have the movie, but if you're fucking up the projection of it, what comes on the screen is fucked, right? So, so you know, there's a technical aspect to cleaning the lens, right? It's like, how do you correctly convey your value in a short period of time in a rather unusual circumstance, right? That is the London day game model, right? Yep. You have this very unusual short window where, you know, you got a couple of seconds to stop them. You got another 10 seconds to get hook point. After hook point, you got a few minutes to vibe. After vibing, you got like, you know, 5-10 minutes to invest, right? And like doing one bit right buys you this larger window later, and you've got to somehow convey all this fucking value in that short period of time from nothing, so that the girls stop and get into it, right? So that's not easy, right? And like, you know, other forms of game, you know, you're trying to get your value out in other ways, right? But the important thing with day game is it's always internal, right? Because you don't have all these props around you. You don't have the VIP table. You don't have a load of sycophants giving you social proof, right? Like, you know, you don't have like loads of time, like 2 hours, to present yourself in a bar, play things off against each other, glad hand everyone, high five the bouncer, or whatever. I mean, I'm caricaturing old school game here, right? But, you know, you don't have all that time to patiently, you know, come in, fucking chat to the bouncer, chat to the barman. Maybe you've got like a fucking pre-existing bit of value there because it's your regular place. And then you sit in the best part of the bar and you got your fucking sycophants around you, you know. And maybe you pawn a few sets in and all the way working yourself methodically towards presenting value for the girl you do want to fuck, right? And it's only, might be like 2 hours later you finally talk to her. Maybe you've been, you know, copping a few IOIs off her, and then you start your game. Well, I say your game, but you know what I mean, you start like the internal. Now, day game, you have none of that. Absolutely none of it, right? You've got to stop that girl within like a second. So to do that, there's an unbelievable amount of value you've got to convey in that second, which is why the geometry is so important. Oh, she's quite nice. Nah, a bit chunky. Lovely face. Just
chunky, a bit. This one, no,
yeah. Nah, she's Amazonian, mate, not in a good sense. So anyway, right, so I think this is all going to come back to the lens thing, right? Is if you're doing charisma-based game, which is what I do, right? Obviously, I'm not doing looks-based game. I'm not doing like social value-based game, right? I'm doing charisma game. Right. Is that lens had better be really fucking clean, right? Because everything depends on going through that. Everything depends on, because there is nothing else around there, right? There's, you know, like I haven't been, I don't know, maybe I'm over drawing the projector metaphor, but you know, it's not like I was like had all the advertising before they came into the cinema. It's not like I've been able to give them all popcorn and sit them down and shake their hands and ask like how their fucking family is and stuff. You know, all that stuff before the movie starts. I've got none of that because of day game. It's day game. That's how it is. Should we go maybe this way? So that lens is going to be super clean. So part of it to draw the IOIs is, I think, just in the way that dogs, everybody fucking loves dogs, right? If someone doesn't love a dog, they're a fucking liar or a faggot, right? Like, everybody loves dogs. And I think one of the reasons everybody loves dogs is they have no guile, right? Like Dale Carnegie in How to Win Friends and Influence People had a whole chapter talking about be like the dog, right? He's like, oh, there's this guy who makes friends with everybody he meets, and like everybody wants to do nice things for him, and because like this guy, all he has is a wagging tail and a stick and a hanging out tongue, right? That everyone loves the dog. Why? Because the dog comes up with you smiling, with value and zero guile. I don't think Carnegie really goes into the lack of guile, but I think men really, really appreciate dogs for not having guile. Because, you know, everybody's trying to impress and manage, everyone's trying to put one over everybody, everyone's jostling with a monkey brain, with little status increments and messing around with each other, you know. Girls obviously totally loads of guile, you know, like playing everybody. So, you know, it's really refreshing and comforting to be around a dog because it has no guile. Now, you might argue the dog's too dumb to have guile, right? Or the dog isn't doing a like sophisticated fucking cleaning of its own lens. It's just born that way, right? That's how dogs are. But everyone loves dogs. So I was thinking, if the very moment you see a dog, you know, a little Labrador walking down the street with his tongue hanging out, you immediately like it, notice it. Well, you're basically IOIing the dog, right? You know, like you're picking it out. You're like, oh, fucking hell, oh, look, that's a great dog. Yeah, you see a big, hairy, shaggy dog walking down the street. You know, you're like, oh, look at the dog. It's cool, right? You sort of, you immediately get this positive impression. It's not because the fucking thing's good looking. So I was thinking, going back last year when I was getting all these IOIs in November, I was thinking, what did I have in my vibe at that week, which was different to usual, and I realised I had zero guile. Like, there was something about my mood that week. I just had like happy dog face, right? I was like, as I was walking down the street, my face had no mask on it. I wasn't thinking, oh, let's be badass, let's be tough, right? I wasn't thinking any of that. God, Jesus, why do people want to sound like that? Fucking hell. That is just the music equivalent of living in a fucking mud hut. Right, it's just fucking bongo drums, isn't it? Right, so anyway, so I was thinking, I wasn't walking around trying to be alpha, right? I wasn't walking around trying to be badass. I wasn't walking around trying to get IOIs, right? There was none of that, you know, like impression management stuff going on. For whatever reason, I was just chatting to my friends in a really fucking good mood, full of high spirits, and my face was just glowing with this, right? It was like transparent, it was like a perfectly clean lens. Now, I've been struggling ever since then to recapture it. And I can only recapture it in small bouts because, you know, the very fact that you're trying to recapture it kind of goes against it, right? It's like fucking Schrodinger's cat or whatever, right? And, oh, there's a nice bird up there. It's just a bit far away. Fuck, we need to be up on there, don't we? Because, I don't know, it's really weird. There's hardly any sets on this path, but there always is on there.
So it's something connected to not having any hidden agendas, no need in it,
yeah.
outcome.
Yeah, so it's kind of like be yourself, right? But the problem is, if you're just a chode trying to do that, people just say, oh, that's a stupid fucking chode, right? There's no value there. You've got to have done all the work so that the movie you present is a good one, right? I mean, you can't just present any... It's really funny, when you see people with like black eyes and you know it's exactly off her right hand and it's on a Sunday, so you know you got it last night when he's drinking, right? So anyway, yeah, because if you're a fucking chode, you're a chode, right? Nobody wants to watch a shitty movie, no matter how fucking clear the resolution is, right? So it's got to be a good movie. But I think once your movie's good, like, the real thought is not bluff and bullshit and avatar and impression management. There comes this point where you have to say, actually, you know what? I can just like lift the mask off, I can switch it off, and then it's just become, how can I purely express myself? And I think something as subtle as that, it sounds like a huge amount of fucking mental masturbation around what is essentially a split-second thing where women look at you and IOI you, right? Women notice you. But when I'm close out of that state, I draw IOIs. When I'm off that state, I don't draw IOIs. I think it's real. And I think there's a real reason for it, because, you notice fucking dogs and you immediately like them. I sometimes think like, ooh, is she alright now? Nah.
What would you call it? Was that an IOI?
I wasn't really looking. That was. But she looks, her fucking trousers, looks like she shot herself. Right, I didn't see the IOI you talked about. But this is another reason.
Looking at us, the blonde,
well, I didn't say it. But the way I'm fucking chuntering on now, that is more likely to draw my IOIs. Because I'm just talking to you about this fucking point. I'm not trying to walk around being a badass, right? I'm just making my point. And then the fact that you're listening to me obviously makes me look like the leader, and yes, that's like a value tap. But yeah, like I think that's again part of the reason why I was drawing all these IOIs in November, is I was walking down the street with like Ray on one side, Adrian on the other, and fucking just banging on about shit, and they were talking about stuff as well, and it just meant there was no pretense, so the girls could see this. I mean, I think so much a game is right. Think of this, right? When Roger Federer does his first serve, right? Like, how many hours of practice have gone into that serve compared to how long it actually takes to deliver the serve, right? It's I don't know, it's what, 2 seconds from bouncing the ball to whacking it over the net, right? It's like it's a little 2-second process. The important bit of it's less than a second, right? And yet he's put like what, like 20 years of like 50 hours a week practice into that moment, right? Or whatever the fuck he does, I don't know, right? But it's a lot, right? It's a lot. So now, why? Because that first serve dominates the point, right? That 1 second of whacking in the serve is, you know, if you do it well, it's either going to win you the point straight off when they can't return it, or it's going to put the opponent on the back foot make the rest of your shots easy, right? And, you know, you're going to serve half the games in the match. So, you know, you might as well put all the work into that little fucking first second, which is going to allow you to dominate half the points in the entire match, right? Now, the street stop's a bit like that, right? If you stop a girl right, you're making the rest of your set easy. Even though the set, maybe this girl here. Right, do you want to stick the camera on? Let's see. That's right, so street stop's a bit like that, right? If you fuck up your street stop, that's like putting in a really shitty serve, and it gives all the momentum to the player to put you on the back foot, right? And doing a shitty stop with the girl's a bit like that. You've just completely blundered the chance to start strong and put the girl on the back foot, right? Now, I think even before the open, it's like if you can draw the IOI or just have her notice you before you've even opened, and it might be literally a split second, she just sees it, and if she can give you that immediate reaction the same way a man gives a happy dog an immediate reaction, that is like whacking in a good first serve, right? Now, of course, I think we should turn around now. Or should we walk to Shevchenko?
Yeah, let's
Right, so if you can walk around in such a way with like your happy dog face that like girls can't help but notice and have a positive reaction to it, and then of course you act on it and you follow up with a really strong open, you know, most of your job's done, right? Now, whether or not you get the girl is going to, after that point, is going to be more dependent on, does she have a boyfriend, does she like the look of you, is she amenable at this point in time to day game, rather than anything you do in the next 10 minutes, right? It's like, you know, it's like the, you know, the happy dog face plus the strong open, that's equivalent to the serve and volley. Right? It's not going to win you every fucking point, right? There's all the other things, but that's the bulk of it, right? It's like, I remember Jeff Thompson, who writes a lot about self-defense. He said, someone asked him, he said, oh, how do you become good at fighting? He said, oh, learn to punch really fucking hard with your right hand. Everything else is backup if that doesn't work. Right? So he says, like, nearly every fight he ever won when he was... Yeah, he was a doorman, yeah, in Coventry. He reckons nearly every fight he ever won was one right hand. One right hand. That was like 95% of his wins. And it was only if that didn't put the guy down, he then had to do his judo, his grappling, his left hook, his clinch work, you know, all that other stuff, right? Only became important if the right hand didn't do it. And I think with day game, it's a bit like that. Is, you know, the happy dog face and the strong open is your right hand. And after that, everything else is just moving it along, you know. Now I exaggerate, obviously. Now this is assuming that the rest of your day game is at least competent, right? And yeah, so you get boxers like that, right? You get boxers who are known as a left hook artist, right? You'll spend like 10 rounds being shit, and then like a split second landing an amazing left hook, and there he goes. He's won the fight, right? And So, you know, like, he's got to be competent at the other stuff to, like, not get his head knocked off in the previous 10 rounds. He's got to have his footwork to get in that position there. See, just had the look there. You know, he's got to get his footwork right. He's got to be balanced. He's got to do all these things, and he's got to set up the left hook, of course. But at that split second, you know, he needs that one split second in the whole fight. Bam, fight one, right? And I think if you want to do younger, hotter, tighter, there's got to be some sort of pizzazz to your game, you know. There's the game you need to pick up girls who are looks matched and age matched, you know. So if you're just some fucking 25-year-old guy, you go to a bar and you go home with a 23-year-old lass who's roundabout as good looking as you are, right? Especially if alcohol involved, right? I mean, there's a certain level of competence you need to pull that off, right? And most chodes can't even do that. But I mean, is it really very difficult, right? Is it really very difficult to pull the sort of girl you ought to be fucking anyway, you know? Pulling the sort of girl that nature intends you to fuck, right? Right, whereas it's a completely different game if you're doing younger, hotter, tighter. Because now what you're trying to do is you're getting a girl who nature's decided you shouldn't really have. Right, you know, she's hotter than you, she's way younger than you, she's not the sort of girl who gives away her notches very easily. And suddenly, you know, it's like, I don't know, it's like moving from like the 4th division up to the Premier League. Right? It's just like you see all these players in football who they're in a lower league and they can bang in all these goals because they get that little yard of space. They get that extra touch before they take the shot, right? And then they move up to the Premier League and that yard of space is gone and that extra touch is gone, right? And so they just get completely shut down by a higher calibre of defence, right? Or the pace of the game's a bit faster, right? So in the Premier League, you must have a first touch, right? If your first touch is shit, that's it. You're fucked. You're crap, right? You're not going to do well. Championship, you can get away with it. So I think games a bit like that is, if you're pulling girls, looks matched, age matched, or even worse, like fucking, you know, girls less good looking than you, it's like a lower league where, you know, the ball comes at you, it can fucking hit the back of your head, roll down your back, spin around, you find it, and still nobody's come to challenge you for the ball, right? You've just got all this time, and it's just easy. Whereas, if you're going to be younger, tight, that's the opposite, right? It's like being in the Champions League, where, you know, any fucking error is punished, where any lack of competence. So I think if you want to operate at that level, you need pizzazz, right? It's not enough to just do a workman-like set. You just saw, you had to say, you look cute, like French, it's your big hair, your silly shoes, ha ha ha. Anyway, where are you from? Whatever, right? Stand that little. I mean, you see a lot of these flat sets on YouTube, and you know, the overwhelming impression is workman-like, steady, solid, workman-like. You know, like with the hare and the tortoise, it's the tortoise. And you know, there's nothing going wrong there. There's no fucking up there. But the problem is, there's no pizzazz. Right, so you're thinking, like, if you're going after a girl 20 years younger than you, who's like a fucking high 8, you know, who's got a bit of a brain on her and doesn't give away her notches easy, like a steady, boring, workman-like set, like, why is that going to give her a reason to fuck you, right? It's not. Like, you think about how good her options are, what she's going to say, oh, that was nice, here's my number anyway, bye, and then it's a flake, right? There's no pizzazz. There's no, like, fireworks going off, you know, there's nothing special to make I think, fucking hell, who was that guy? Right, so the pizzazz is things like eye mesmer. It's things like stepping in on them. It's things like doing this really subtle, dry humour where you're just standing still and they're like rocking back and forwards and spinning around, pissing themselves laughing, right? It's like this super fucking electric spark of tension. It's doing the right keynote, you know, like you saw when I was like whiplashing that girl's hair the other day, you know. Those are the things which are like pizzazz, which set you like way above the solid workman-like day game. Right, so I think what the pizzazz gives you is it gives you volatility. Right, so the positive side of the steady workman-like sets is that you're not really fucking up, you're not taking gambles you might lose, and you're not putting too much on the line, right? You're not forcing too much out of the girl. She just has to listen, play a part of the conversation, give you the number and make her mind up, right? So if you grind that, that's the grind, right? So if you crank that handle of the sausage machine, put enough slop in the top, you know, eventually something's coming out of there, right? And that's the kind of methodical, numbers-based grinding, right? Your number farming, whatever, right? It's like just crank the handle, put out solid, steady work, something's going to come through, because you will eventually find a girl who's available and into you, who's willing to make it happen, right? The problem is they're never going to be hot. You know, it's going to, once in a fucking blue moon, one of them will be hot, right? Most of the time, yeah, you can do better than age and looks matching, but not, you know, you're not pushing the end of the younger, hotter, tighter spectrum, right? So, you know, a lot of these guys, you see the videos, good solid sets, they get laid, but the girls are kind of mediocre. You're like, yep, I'd fuck her, sure. But, you know, and yeah, he's doing well, right? Yeah, she's like 7 years younger than him, maybe a little bit better looking, you know, or maybe even more so, you know, if he does really good set, gets even luckier. But it's not like fucking wow. But I think when you're doing the pizzazz-based sets, I'm alright. I'm happy to just fucking walk. I mean, did you want to?
Yeah, it doesn't get worse than this. Well, let's give it a few more seconds.
A few more seconds. Hanging on by your fingernails. Your balls like me, mate. You just need to like rub your head and you're fucking laughing. Now stand under if you want though. I'm not fussed. Right, so the pizzazz, what it introduces is volatility. Right? It means more of your sets are going to blow up and go wrong. But like but the bandwidth is going to be wider, right? More fuck up but more high points. Right? So it's just increased, well, volatility, that's the definition of it. Now what happens is, because the payoff in day game is you fail most of the time, but you get rare successes. Volatility, what it does is it makes those rare successes better, right? Because you're pushing higher up the younger, hotter, tighter. So you know you're going to get more blowouts, you're going to get more flaky numbers, you're going to get more just halfway through you just put your fuck wrong and fuck the whole thing up. But what you're going to get is when you do win, when you do get it to work, she's hotter. Right? Why? Because you put the pizzazz on it. So, I mean, this is like a working theory. I haven't been doing it long enough to properly collect stats on it, but certainly this year is a good example of that. You know, last year as well, you know, my wins were really big. My actual ratios were worse, you know, my open to lay was worse, but the actual, when I won, it was like hotter girl, chase girl, faster, more fun, more dramatic, you know, like all the like win criteria were better. It's just, you know, increased volatility. It's a risk and a reward. So this is why I try to do all this, like step in on them, fucking hell. Like I mesmer them and all that sort of stuff, you know. It's to increase the pizzazz in order to mean that you've got more chance of winning the ones which would normally be outside the threshold, you know.